Welcome. Welcome to another episode of Cigars on the Front Porch. Today, we want to talk about, just very briefly, uh, something very simple as humidity and temperature in your humidor. And with that, it's just a few things just to touch bases on. I'm not going to go into a super in-depth uh, part, just a brief overview. We'll go into some of the details later on. But remember, if this content is helping you, to like and subscribe to Cigars on the Front Porch. Today we're going to be talking about humidity and briefly some temperature ranges. The rule of thumb to go by is what the most people call the 70-70 rule. 70% humidity and 70% temperature. Of course, you're going to need something to gauge your humidity with and something to gauge your temperature with. Your humidity and temperature gauges should be on the outside of your humidor. If you do not have those on the outside of your humidor, you're going to need to go and purchase some, because you can't just put them in there blindly to keep them within range. Some cigars are very temperamental. You have to watch them. You don't have to watch them over and over again like a hawk, but you do need to keep an eye on them. And with that temperature and humidity, they can fluctuate. They can go up and down by a few. My personal preference is plus or minus 5. Anything outside of that range, I think I would definitely do something to change it. So if it's 70, which is ideal for me, I can keep mine with the temperature around 70, 65. I don't want it to get hotter than that, hotter than 70, 72, 75, somewhere in that range. We're not looking for perfection. But if it drops below on the humidity, let's just say it drops below 65, and the same thing with the humidity. I try to keep it within that 70 range, 65 at the lower end, 75 at the higher end. As long as it's within that part, you have a sweet spot for it. But if it gets below 65, the cigar will dry and break apart, and it will burn too fast. It'll leave an acrid taste, and about 80%. And at 80%, the cigar will increase its chances of rotting and or molding. And that means you got too much humidity. There's a way to pull back on the humidity in the humidor by taking out some of the still water. And we're going to talk about that pretty briefly. With the temperature, if it's between 65 and 70 degrees, it reduces the chances of it burning too fast, the physical sustainability of the cigar. So another part is reducing. Once the temperature gets over 76 degrees, 75, the oils in the cigar start to dry out, and you'll lose flavor of the cigar. So the temperature gets too hot, you'll lose some flavor, acrid taste, burn, all that. I would encourage you to use what they call a pinch test, and that's something simple. Just any digit that you have on your finger, you can pinch those, and that's what it's supposed to feel like a finger. If you pinch a cigar and it feels like a soft finger, you're good. If it's a hard finger or if it's too soft, then you may want to watch your humidity. Another thing that will help your cigars is Spanish cedar. This is some of it right here. You can get it about anywhere. Just a little bag of it. And with the Spanish cedar, it holds moisture more than most woods do. It aids in the in the rehydration process after the humidor has been opened. It absorbs and helps to stop moisture from building up. It draws away tobacco worms, beetles, tobacco worms and beetle, and adds a light woody flavor to it. So just something simple and inexpensive as that can aid in the quality of your cigars when they're in your humidor. Your humidor is going to absorb 2 to 5% of your moisture. I would encourage you to get some distilled water and use your humidor humidifier to gauge in the temperature. Make sure it's calibrated. And when it gets to be, you want it a few degrees higher. So when it gets to be 72 or higher or whatnot, once you get the distilled water in there, then you can make sure you pull that distilled water out and do something and get you one of these like Bovita packs or any other kind of humidity packet and put in there, because it's going to absorb and release moisture as is needed. Those packets will serve about 25 cigars and they will last for about 2 months. So one Bovita pack for everybody for every 25 cigars. Set a note, a calendar, however you want to do it, a reminder to every 2 months to look at them and change them out. When they start to get hard, then they're no good, and toss them or whatnot. And this is just a jug of some distilled water. Do not use tap water. Do not use water from the sink. Do not use tap water. Use distilled water. You're going to mess up your cigars if you use tap water. Okay? And with the humidors, you're going to lose some humidity. This is one of my older ones. It's a glass one. So it's gonna, some of the humidity is gonna come through the glass. Also with the temperature as well. If you get sunlight into that, that's gonna take a little bit off. And inside this, one of the things that you have all these parts that you can add distilled water to that will help your cigars stay humid. One like this. There's one like that. There's a lot of gels, a lot of things. Whatever you want to use is fine. Just make sure that you put distilled water in it, not tap water. And one thing that I like to do is I bought one of these. It is a Bluetooth and it goes to my phone as long as I'm in the house, and it tells me remotely what the temperature and the humidity are inside of the humidor, so I don't have to open it up. So I don't have to necessarily go to it and actually look at the gauge. I can be in another part of the house and just pull it up on my phone, and it will send you alerts. If you're in the house or somewhere like that, it'll send you alert that your humidity and or your temperature is too high or too low, whatever parameters that you set it. Remember to gauge it with ±3 or ±5 uh, with your Bluetooth or any other kind of setting that you have, even the outside settings on it. You may want to go ±3 or ±5 degrees. Okay. Also, with these cigars, humidors, that one to hold up to 50. Just because it'll hold up to 50 don't mean you have to put 50 in it. Doesn't mean that you have to put 75 of them in there. Doesn't mean you have to put 10. But just keep in mind, the more you pack in there with the cigars, the more that the flavors can marry together, especially if they're not separated. So that's another issue. Plus, with a box like that, a humidor box, you probably put 2 Bovita packets. You may put 3. Just depends on how you want to do your humidity in there. The boxes do not control the temperature. That's why I would encourage, if you have the time or the money, to go ahead and buy a refrigerated, temperature controlled humidor, one that will monitor your temperature and your humidity. It's electric. It's like a little small mini college fridge, and you can put your cigars in there. It'll hold 125 at the least, 250, 500. How many that humidor will hold? But it'll hold more than the 50 in the portable one, the little small box one. The small box one, you're gonna have to keep it out of direct sunlight, and you got to find a way to not let it get too much heat. So if you have a nice, excuse me, isolated place where you can put it to keep the temperature down, that's great. Use that. The good thing about those, they're small, portable. You can pick them up and take them with you. Easy access, no electricity. You don't take any of that. You just have to do it. Monitor the humidity and monitor the temp. Also, too, there's a way to calibrate the hydrometer, and that's using the plastic container and the table salt, distilled water, the bottle cap. You can look that up anywhere and find out how to do that. Uh, you have to get your humidor ready before you purchase your cigars. So let's just say you're going to buy some cigars on Friday. Then you need to start preparing your new humidor on Monday. You may need to take the distilled water and a sponge and completely wipe down the humidor to get the distilled water into the wood that's in the humidor. Let it sit for a couple hours. You let it sit for a day. Go back and do the same thing. I would encourage you to do it twice a day for like 2 days and check that humidity. You want that humidor to absorb the the moisture so that when you add your cigars, they're going to take some of that humidity from what's already in there. But then you have your distilled water that's in there. And once you get it to the right humidity setting, pull that distilled water out because the humidity can continually increase. And you don't want to do that because you can get mold and the cigars won't last as long. So once you get to your desired humidity, pull the distilled water out and just use a Bovita pack and then toss it out to that. Now, if you want to keep the distilled water in there, that's fine. Just keep an eye on it to make sure it doesn't get too high. Okay. So that's just a few tidbits about the humidity and the temperature for your humidor. Make sure you keep it within range. Set your own parameters. For me, I try to do plus or minus 5. When it gets plus or minus 2, or 3, then I'll start kind of nursing it and looking into it. I hope that this has been helpful with you today. Just a little short video on the humidity and temperature of a humidor. Once again, like and subscribe to this channel below. Like and subscribe to this channel below. Pretty soon I'm going to be talking about flavors. It may not be in the next video, but it is going to be coming up, especially with chocolate. I love chocolate. Anyway, like and subscribe to Cigars on the Front Porch, and thank you for joining me today.